Hey guys, happy Thursday, happy Friday Eve, as Mr. Wells would say. I have some crazy news for you guys. We're going to finish this book today. We're so close to being done, and we're going to finish it. So, without further ado, let's get started. This is called The Last Precept. This was written on Mr. Brown's chalkboard when we walked into English class for the last time. Mr. Brown's June precept. Just follow the day and reach for the sun. Have a great summer vacation, Class 5B. It's been a great year and you've been a wonderful group of students. If you remember, please send me a postcard this summer with your personal precept. It can be something you made up for yourself or something you've read somewhere that means something to you. If so, don't forget the attribution, please. I really look forward to getting them. Tom Brown, 563 Sebastian Place, Bronx, New York, 153. So, this next chapter is called The Drop-Off. The graduation ceremony was held in the Beecher Prep Upper School Auditorium. It was only about a 15-minute walk from our house to the other campus building, but Dad drove me because I was all dressed up and I had on new, shiny, black shoes that weren't broken in yet, and I didn't want my feet to hurt. Students that were supposed to arrive at the auditorium an hour before the ceremony started, but we got there even earlier, so we sat in the car and waited. Dad turned on the CD player, and our favorite song came on. We both smiled and started bobbing our heads to the music. Dad sang along with the song. "Hey, is my tie on straight?" I said. He looked and straightened it a tiny bit, but he kept on singing. "Does my hair look okay?" I said. He smiled and nodded. "Perfect," he said. "You look great, Augie." "Via put some gel in it this morning," I said, pulling down the sun visor and looking in the mirror. "It doesn't look too puffy?" "No, it's very cool, Augie. I don't think you've ever had it this short before, have you?" "No, I got it cut yesterday. I think it makes me look more grown up, don't you?" "Definitely." He was smiling, looking at me and nodding. "Look at you, Augie," he said, smiling from ear to ear. "Look at you, looking so grown up and spiffy. I can't believe you're graduating from the 5th grade." "I know. It's pretty awesome, right?" I nodded. "It feels like just yesterday that you started. Remember I still had that Star Wars braid hanging from the back of my head?" "Oh my gosh, that's right," he said, rubbing his palm over his forehead. "You hated that braid, didn't you, Dad?" Hate is a strong word, but I definitely didn't love it. "You hated it. Come on, admit it," I teased. "No, I didn't hate it," he smiled, shaking his head, "but I will admit to hating the astronaut helmet you used to wear. Do you remember?" "The one Miranda gave me? Of course I remember. I used to wear that thing all the time." "Ugh, I hated that thing," he laughed, almost more to himself. "I was so bummed when it got lost," I said. "Oh, it didn't get lost," he answered casually. "I threw it away." "Wait, what?" I said. Honestly, I didn't think I heard him right. Dad was just singing away. "Dad," I said, turning the volume down. "What?" he said. "You threw it away?" He finally looked at my face and saw how mad I was. I couldn't believe he was being so matter-of-fact about the whole thing. I mean, to me, this was a major revelation, and he was acting like it was no big deal. "Augie, I couldn't stand seeing that thing cover your face anymore," he said. "Dad, I loved that helmet. It meant a lot to me. I was bummed beyond belief when it got lost, don't you remember?" "Of course I remember, Augie," he said softly. "Oh, Augie, don't be mad. I'm sorry. I just couldn't stand seeing you wear that thing on your head anymore, you know? I didn't think it was good for you." He was trying to look me in the eye, but I wouldn't look at him. "Come on, Augie, please try to understand," he continued, putting his hand under my chin and tilting my face toward him. "You were wearing that helmet all the time. And the real truth is, I missed seeing your face, Augie. I know you don't always love it, but you have to understand. I love it. I love this face of yours, Augie, completely and passionately. And it kind of broke my heart that you were always covering it up." He was squinting at me like he really wanted me to understand. "Does Mom know?" I said. He opened his eyes wide. "No way! Are you kidding? She would have killed me." "She tore that place apart looking for that helmet, Dad," I said. "I mean, she spent like a week looking for it in every closet, in the laundry room, everywhere." "I know," he said, nodding. "That's why she'd kill me." And then he looked at me, and something about his expression made me start laughing, which made him open his mouth wide like he'd just realized something. Wait a minute, Augie, he said, pointing his finger at me. You have to promise you will never tell Mom about this. I smiled and rubbed my palms together like I was about to get very greedy, so he's rubbing his palms together like this. Let's see, I said, stroking my chin. I'll be wanting that new Xbox when it comes out next month, and I'll definitely be wanting my own car in about 6 years. A red Porsche would be nice, and he started laughing. I love it when I'm the only one who makes Dad laugh, since he's usually the funny man that gets everybody else laughing. Oh boy, he said, shaking his head. You really have grown up. The part of the song we love to sing the most started to play, and I turned up the volume. We both started singing. I'm not going to sing it for you guys because I don't really know the song, so I'm just going to read the lyrics to you, okay? I'm the ugliest guy on the Lower East Side, but I've got wheels and want you to go for a ride. Want to go for a ride, want to go for a ride, want to go for a ride. I don't know that song. We always sing the last part at the top of our lungs, trying to hold that last note as long as the guy who sang the song, which always makes us crack up. While we were laughing, we noticed Jack had arrived and walked over to our car. I started to get out. Hold on, said Dad. I just want to make sure you've forgiven me, okay? Yes, I forgive you. He looked at me gratefully. Thank you. But don't ever throw anything else of mine out again without telling me. I promise. I opened the door and got out just as Jack reached the car. Hey, Jack, I said. Hey, Augie. Hey, Mr. Pullman, said Jack. How you doing, Jack, said Dad. See you later, Dad, I said, closing the door. Good luck, guys, Dad called out, rolling down the front window. See you on the other side of 5th grade. We waved as he turned on the ignition and started to pull away, but then I ran over and stopped the car. I put my head in the window so Jack wouldn't hear what I was saying. Can you guys not kiss me a lot after graduation? I asked quietly. It's kind of embarrassing. I'll try my best. Tell Mom too. I don't think she'll be able to resist Augie, but I'll pass it along. Bye, dear old Dad. He smiled. Bye, my son, my son. So this next chapter is called Take Your Seats, everyone. Jack and I walked right behind a couple of 6th graders into the building and then followed them to the auditorium. Mrs. G was at the entrance, holding out the programs and telling kids where to go. 5th graders down the aisle to the left, she said. 6th graders go right. Everyone come in, come in. Good morning. Go to your staging areas. 5th graders to the left, 6th graders to the right. The auditorium was huge inside. Big, sparkly chandeliers, red velvet walls, rows and rows and rows of cushioned seats leading up to the giant stage. We walked down the wide aisle and followed the signs to the 5th grade staging area, which was in a big room to the left on the stage. Inside were 4 rows of folding chairs facing the front of the room, which is where Miss Rubin was standing, waving us in as soon as we walked in the room. Okay, kids, take your seats. Take your seats, she was saying, pointing to the rows of chairs. Don't forget, you're sitting alphabetically. Come on, everybody, take your seats. Not too many kids had arrived yet, though, and the ones who had weren't listening to her. Me and Jack were sword fighting with our rolled-up programs. Hey, guys! It was Summer walking over to us. She was wearing a light pink dress and I think a little makeup. Wow, Summer, you look good, I told her, because she really did. Thanks. You do too, Augie. Yeah, you look okay, Summer, said Jack, kind of matter-of-fact. And for the first time, I realized that Jack had a crush on her. This is so exciting, isn't it, said Summer. Yeah, kind of, I answered, nodding. Oh man, look at this program, said Jack, scratching his forehead. We're going to be here all day. I looked at my program. Headmaster's opening remarks, middle school director's address, light and day, 5th grade student commencement address, the canon in D, 6th grade student commencement address, under pressure, middle school dean's address, awards presentation. Why do you think that? I asked. Because Mr. Jansen's speeches go on forever, said Jack. He's even worse than Tushman. My mom said she actually dozed off when he spoke last year, Summer added. What's the awards presentation? I asked. That's where they give medals to the biggest brainiacs, Jack answered, which would mean Charlotte and Zima will win everything in the 5th grade, just like Charlotte won everything in 3rd grade and 4th grade. But not in 2nd, I laughed. They didn't give those awards out in 2nd grade, he answered. Maybe you'll win this year, I joked. Not unless they give awards for the most C's, he laughed. Everybody take your seats. Miss Rubin started yelling louder now, like she was getting annoyed that nobody was listening. We have a lot to get through, so take your seats. Don't forget you're sitting in alphabetical order. A through G is the first row, H through N, second row, O through Q, third row, R through Z is the last row. Let's go, people! We should sit down, said Summer, walking toward the front section. You guys are definitely coming over to my house after this, right? I called out after. Definitely, she said, taking her seat next to Zima. Mr. Will, Miss Rubin shouted. Last time I checked, W came between R and Z, yes? Jack looked at her blankly. Dude, you're in the wrong row, I said. I am? And the face he made as he got up to leave, which was a mixture of looking completely confused and looking like he just played a joke on someone, totally cracked me up. This next chapter is called A Simple Thing. We're getting really close, guys. Keep checking. Got a little more than 10 pages. Sorry if you can hear that. Just moving in my seat. Alright, so this is called A Simple Thing. About an hour later, we were all seated in the giant auditorium waiting for Mr. Tushman to give his middle school address. The auditorium was even bigger than I imagined it would be. Bigger even than the one in Via's school. I looked around and there must have been 1 million people in the audience. Okay, maybe not 1 million, but definitely a lot. Thank you, Headmaster Jansen, for those very kind words of introduction, said Mr. Tushman, standing behind the podium on the stage as he talked into the microphone. Welcome, my fellow teachers and members of the faculty. Welcome, parents and grandparents, friends, and honored guests, and most especially, welcome to my 5th and 6th grade students. Welcome to the Beecher Prep Middle School graduation ceremonies. Everyone applauded. Every year, continued Mr. Tushman, reading from his notes with his glasses down way at the tip of his nose, I am charged with writing 2 commencement addresses. One for the 5th and 6th grade graduation ceremony, and one for the 7th and 8th grade ceremony that will take place tomorrow. And every year I say to myself, let me cut down on my work and write just one address that I can use for both situations. Seems like it shouldn't be such a hard thing to do, right? And yet, each year I still end up with 2 different speeches. No matter what my intentions, I finally figured out why this year. It's not as you might assume, simply because tomorrow I'll be talking to an older crowd with a middle school experience that is largely behind them, whereas your middle school experience is largely in front of you. No, I think it has more to do with the particular age that you are right now. This moment, or this particular moment in your lives, even after 20 years of my being around students this age, still moves me. Because you're at the cusp, kids. You're at the edge between childhood and everything that comes after. You're in transition. We are all gathered here today, Mr. Tushman continued, taking off his glasses and using them to point at us in the audience. All your friends, families, and teachers to celebrate not only your achievements of the past year, Beecher middle schoolers, but your endless possibilities. When you reflect on this past year, I want you all to look at where you are now and where you've been. You've all gotten a little taller, a little stronger, a little smarter, I hope. Here some people in the audience chuckled. But the best way to measure how much you've grown isn't by inches or the number of laps you can now run around the track or even your grade point average. Though those things are important to be sure, it's what you've done with your time, how you've chosen to spend your days, and whom you've touched this year. That, to me, is the greatest measure of success. There's a wonderful line in a book by J.M. Barrie. And no, it's not Peter Pan. And I'm not going to ask you to clap if you believe in fairies. Here, everyone laughed again. But another book by J.M. Barrie called The Little White Bird. He writes, and he started flipping through a small book on the podium until he found the page he was looking for, and then he put on his reading glasses. Shall we make a new rule of life? Always trying to be a little kinder than is necessary. Here Mr. Tushman looked up at the audience. Kinder than is necessary, he repeated. What a marvelous line, isn't it? Kinder than is necessary. Because it's not enough to be kind. One should be kinder than needed. Why, I love that line. That concept is that it reminds me that we carry with us, as human beings, not just the capacity to be kind, but the very choice of kindness. And what does that mean? How is that measured? You can't use a yardstick. It's like I was saying just before. It's not like measuring how much you've grown in a year. It's not exactly quantifiable, is it? How do we know we've been kind? What is being kind anyway? He put on his reading glasses again and started flipping through another small book. There's another passage in a different book I'd like to share with you, he said, if you'll bear with me while I find it. Here we go. In Under the Eye of the Clock by Christopher Nolan, the main character is a young man who is facing some extraordinary challenges. There's one part where someone helps him, a kid in his class. On the surface, it's a small gesture, but to this young man, whose name is Joseph, it's, well, if you'll permit me. He cleared his throat and read from the book. It was at moments such as these that Joseph recognized the face of God in human form. It glimmered in their kindness to him. It glowed in their keenness. It hinted in their caring. Indeed, it caressed in their gaze. He paused and took off his reading glasses again. It glimmered in their kindness to him, he repeated, smiling. Such a simple thing. Kindness. Such a simple thing. A nice word of encouragement given when needed. An act of friendship. A passing smile. He closed the book, put it down, and leaned forward on the podium. Children, what I want to impart to you today is an understanding of the value of the simple thing called kindness. And that's all I want to leave you with today. I know I'm kind of infamous for my verbosity. Here, everybody laughed again. I guess he was known for his long speeches, which is what verbosity means, or verbosity. But what I want you, my students, to take away from your middle school experience, he continued, is the sure knowledge that in the future you'll make for yourselves. Anything is possible. If every single person in this room made it a rule that wherever you are, whenever you can, you will always try to act a little kinder than is necessary, the world really would be a better place. And if you do this, if you act just a little kinder than is necessary, someone else, somewhere, someday, may recognize in you, in every single one of you, the face of God. He paused and shrugged, or whatever politically correct spiritual representation of universal goodness you happen to believe in, he added quickly, smiling, which got a lot of laughs and loads of applause, especially from the back of the auditorium where the parents were sitting. This is called awards. I liked Mr. Tishman's speech, but I'll have to admit, I kind of zoned out a little during some of the other speeches. I tuned in again when Miss Rubin started reading off the names of the kids who had made the honor roll, because we were supposed to stand up when our names were called. So I waited and listened for my name as she went down the list alphabetically. Reed Kingsley, Maya Markowitz, August Pullman. I stood up. Then when she finished reading off the names, she asked us all to face the audience and take a bow. Everyone applauded. I had no idea where in that huge crowd my parents might be sitting. All I can see were the flashes of light from people taking photos and parents waving at their kids. I pictured Mom waving at me somewhere, even though I couldn't see her. Then Mr. Tishman came back to the podium to present the medals for academic excellence. And Jack was right. Zima Chin won the gold medal for overall academic excellence in the 5th grade. Charlotte won the silver. Charlotte also won a gold medal for music. Amos won the medal for overall excellence in sports, which I was really happy about. Ever since the nature retreat, I considered Amos to be one of, my best friends in the school. But I really was thrilled when Mr. Tishman called out Summer's name for the gold medal in creative writing. I saw Summer put her hand over her mouth when her name was called, and when she walked up onto the stage, I yelled, "Woohoo, Summer!" as loud as I could, though I don't think she heard me. After the last name was called, all the kids who'd just won awards stood next to each other on stage, and Mr. Tishman said to the audience, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to present to you this year's Beecher Prep School Scholastic Achievers. Congratulations to all of you." I applauded as the kids on stage bowed. I was so happy for Summer. "The final award this morning," said Mr. Tishman as the kids on stage had returned to their seats, "is the Henry Ward Beecher Medal of Honor, students who have been notable or exemplary in certain areas throughout the school year. Typically, this medal has been our way of acknowledging volunteerism or service to the school. I immediately figured Charlotte would get this medal because she organized the coat drive this year, so I kind of zoned out a little bit again. I looked at my watch, 10:56. I was getting hungry for lunch already. Henry Ward Beecher was, of course, the 19th century abolitionist and fiery sermonizer for human rights after whom this school was named. Mr. Tushman was saying when I started paying attention again. While reading up on his life in preparation for this award, I came upon a passage that he wrote that seemed particularly consistent with the themes I touched on earlier, themes I've been ruminating all year long. Not just the nature of kindness, but the nature of one's kindness, the power of one's friendship, the test of one's character, the strength of one's courage. And here, the weirdest thing happened. Mr. Tushman's voice cracked a bit, like he got all choked up. He actually cleared his throat and took a big sip of water. I started paying attention, for real now, to what he was saying. The strength of one's courage, he repeated quietly, nodding and smiling. He held up his right hand like he was counting off. Courage, kindness, friendship, character. These are all the qualities that define us as human beings and propel us, on occasion, to greatness. And this is what the Henry Ward Beecher Medal is about, recognizing greatness. But how do we do that? How do we measure something like greatness? Again, there's no yardstick for that kind of thing. How do we even define it? Well, Beecher actually had an answer for that. He put his reading glasses on again, leafed through a book, and started to read. Greatness, wrote Beecher, lies not in being strong, but in the right of using strength. He is the greatest whose strength carries up the most hearts. And again, out of the blue, he got all choked up. He put his 2 index fingers over his mouth for a second before continuing. He is the greatest, he finally continued, whose strength carries up the most hearts by the attraction of his own. Without further ado, this year I am very proud to award the Henry Ward Beecher Medal to the student whose quiet strength has carried up most of the hearts. So, will August Pullman please come up to receive this award? We're going a little bit long. We'll just finish it. Sorry, this is going to be a long video, guys. This next chapter is called Floating. People started applauding before Mr. Tushman's words actually registered in my brain. I heard Maya, who was next to me, give a little happy scream when she heard my name, and Miles, who was on the other side of me, patted my back. "Stand up, get up," said all the kids around me, and I felt lots of hands pushing me upward out of my seat, guiding me to the edge of the row, patting my back, high-fiving me. "Way to go, Augie. Nice going, Augie." I even started hearing my name being chanted. Augie, Augie. I looked back, and Jack leading the chant, fists up in the air, smiling and signaling for me to keep going, and Aim was shouting through his hands, "Woohoo, little dude!" Then I saw Summer smiling as I walked past her row, and when she saw me look at her, she gave me a secret little thumbs up and mouthed a silent, "Cool beans" to me. I laughed and shook my head like I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. I think I was smiling. Maybe I was beaming. I don't know. As I walked up to the aisle towards the stage, all I saw was a blur of happy, bright faces looking at me, and hands clapping for me. And I heard people yelling things out like, "You deserve it, Augie. Good for you, Augie." I saw all my teachers in the aisle seats, Mr. Brown, Miss Petosa, Mr. Roche, and Mrs. A, and Nurse Molly, and all the others, and they were cheering for me. I felt like I was floating. It was so weird. Like the sun was shining full force on my face and the wind was blowing. As I got closer to the stage, I saw Miss Rubin waving at me in the front row. And then next to her was Mrs. G, who was crying hysterically. A happy crying, smiling and clapping the whole time. And as I walked up the steps to the stage, the most amazing thing happened. Everyone started standing up. Not just the front rows, but the whole audience suddenly got up on their feet, hollering, clapping like crazy. It was a standing ovation. For me. I walked across the stage to Mr. Tushman, who shook my hand with both his hands and whispered in my ear, "Well done, Augie." Then he placed the gold medal over my head, just like they do in the Olympics, and had me turn to face the audience. It felt like I was watching myself in a movie, almost like I was someone else. It was like that last scene in Star Wars, A New Hope, when Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Chewbacca were being applauded for destroying the Death Star. I could almost hear the Star Wars theme music playing in my head as I stood on the stage. I wasn't even really sure why I was getting this medal. That's not true. I knew why. It's like people you see sometimes and you can't imagine what it would be like to be that person, whether it's somebody in a wheelchair or somebody who can't talk. Only I know that I'm that person to other people, maybe to every single person in that whole auditorium. To me, though, I'm just me, an ordinary kid. But hey, if they want to give me a medal for being me, that's okay. I'll take it. I didn't destroy a Death Star or anything like that, but I did just get through the 5th grade, and that's not easy, even if you're not me. So this next chapter is called Pictures. I promise we're almost done, guys. I'm sorry it's going long. Afterward, there was a reception for the 5th and 6th graders under a huge white tent in the back of the school. All the kids found their parents. I didn't mind at all when Mom and Dad hugged me like crazy or when Via wrapped her arms around me and swung me left and right about 20 times. Then Papa and Tata hugged me, and Aunt Kate and Uncle Poe and Uncle Ben. Everyone was kind of teary-eyed and wet-cheeked, but Miranda was the funniest. She was crying more than anyone and squeezed me so tight that Via had to practically pry her off of me, which made them both laugh. Everyone started taking pictures of me and pulling out their flips, and then Dad got me, Summer, and Jack together for a group shot. We put our arms around each other's shoulders, and for the first time I can remember, I wasn't even thinking about my face. I was just smiling, a big, fat, happy smile for all the different cameras clicking away at me. Smiling away as Jack's parents and Summer's mom started clicking. Then Reed and Maya came over, and then Charlotte came over and asked if she could take a picture with us, and we were like, sure, of course. And then Charlotte's parents were snapping away at our little group with everyone else's parents. And then next I knew, the 2 Maxes had come over, and Henry and Miles and Savannah and Amos, and we were all in this big tight huddle as parents clicked away like we were on the red carpet. I lost track of who else came over. Everyone, practically. All I knew for sure is that we were all laughing and squeezing in tight against each other, and no one seemed to care if it was my face that the next to theirs or not. In fact, I don't mean to brag here, but it kind of felt like everyone wanted to get close to me. So this next chapter, the last chapter, is called The Walk Home. We walked to our house for cake and ice cream after the reception. Jack and his parents and his little brother Jamie, Summer and her mom, Uncle Poe and Aunt Kate, Uncle Ben, Tata and Papa, Justin and Via and Miranda, Mom and Dad. It was one of those great June days when the sky is completely blue and the sun is shining, but it isn't so hot that you wish you were on the beach instead. It was just the perfect day. Everyone was happy. I still felt like I was floating, the Star Wars hero music still in my head. I walked with Summer and Jack, and we just couldn't stop cracking up. Everything made us laugh. We were in that giggly kind of mood where all someone has to do is look at you and start laughing. I heard Dad's voice up ahead and looked up. He was telling everyone a funny story as they walked down Amesworth Avenue. The grown-ups were all laughing too. It was like Mom always said, Dad could be a comedian. I noticed Mom wasn't walking with a group of grown-ups, so I looked behind me. She was hanging back a bit, smiling to herself like she was thinking of something sweet. She seemed happy. I took a few steps back and surprised her by hugging her as she walked. She put her arms around me and gave me a squeeze. Thank you for making me go to school, I said quietly. She hugged me close and leaned down and kissed the top of my head. Thank you, Augie, she answered softly. For what? For everything you've given us, she said, for coming into our lives, for being you. She bent down and whispered into my ear, You really are a wonder, Augie. You are a wonder. All right, that is the end of our book. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know I did. I love you guys. I miss you guys. And I will talk to you soon.